In a small village forgotten by time, there lived a girl named Amara, whose beauty was like the first sunlight of dawn, and whose heart beat with dreams she could not yet reach. She lived with her widowed mother in a house of clay and straw, where the rains pierced through the roof and hunger was a constant companion. Every day she watched other girls marry and settle into quiet lives while she longed for freedom, dignity, and love that did not bow to poverty. And there was a boy named Kofi, poor beyond measure, with patched sandals and threadbare clothes, whose hands were roughened by labor but whose heart was gentle and full of warmth. Every evening he brought firewood to her mother, repaired their cracked walls, shared his little food, and every evening he greeted Amara with a smile that made her chest ache. But she only saw his poverty and not the goodness in his soul. Until one evening when the sky blushed pink and the wind whispered secrets through the trees, Kofi finally gathered his courage and said, "Amara, I have nothing to give you but my heart. My loyalty and my life. Let me love you and care for you all my days." And for a moment Amara felt her chest swell with a longing she could not name. Tears threatening to fall, but fear gripped her. Fear of struggle. Fear of repeating her mother's suffering. Fear of being trapped, and she laughed, bitter and cruel. Love does not cook food. Love does not fill empty stomachs. Love does not give a life worth living. And the villagers whispered, hearts heavy with pity, and Kofi bowed his head, silent, his eyes brimming with tears, and left without a word, leaving Amara alone with her choice, telling herself she had done the right thing. While in the silence of her nights she wept alone, every heartbeat whispering his name, every step to the river reminding her of the boy she had lost forever. And though she buried it deep, every part of her ached with a love she had thrown away. And from that moment the shadow of regret began following her, quiet, persistent, and unrelenting, reminding her that some opportunities, once gone, never return, and that love given freely and rejected can leave scars deeper than any wound she could imagine. And each day she told herself she would forget, but her heart knew she never would, and in the stillness of the village nights, the wind carried her quiet sobs through the empty fields, echoing with the memory of the boy who had loved her unconditionally and whom she had turned away, never knowing that life would one day bring him back as someone she could never ignore. Years passed, and Amara married a wealthy trader, a man older than her, adorned in fine robes and smelling of oils that masked the coldness in his heart. And the villagers praised her, saying she had escaped poverty. But she had traded love for comfort, and in the nights she lay awake, remembering Kofi's eyes, soft and kind, while her husband's words struck her like stones, every command reminding her she was never free. Her mother died quietly one night, alone in her bed, and Amara could not be there because her husband said she must remain at home. And she buried her mother with a heart hollowed by guilt. The house was grand, but the walls echoed loneliness. The bed was soft, but she wept in silence. And every market day, whispers came of a young king who had returned from exile. Young, powerful, just his name whispered with awe and disbelief. And when the summons came for her husband to attend the palace, Amara went, heart heavy with memories. And there he was, standing tall and regal, dressed in royal cloth, his eyes carrying the same gentleness and fire she remembered. And she froze, recognizing the boy she had cruelly rejected, now a king, and for the first time she understood that life had completed its circle. And her chest ached with regret that words could not undo. And though she walked beside her husband, every step felt like a betrayal to the boy she had turned away. And in the silence of the palace corridors, she felt the weight of time pressing down upon her. The years she had lost, the love she had abandoned, and the choices that had led her to this gilded cage. And for the first time she truly wept, silently, wishing she could turn back the clock, wishing she could hold him when she had the chance, wishing she had known that love alone, pure and steadfast, was the greatest treasure she could have ever possessed. Years had passed, and Kofi, once the poor boy Amara had scorned, had grown into a man of strength and wisdom, a king whose word was law and whose heart carried the memory of love long lost. Yet even amidst the grandeur of his palace, the jewels, the banners, the praise of his people, he felt the hollow ache of the girl he had loved and lost. And when fate brought Amara into his court standing beside her wealthy husband, adorned in fine clothes, but carrying a sadness that not even silk could hide, Kofi's chest tightened as memories flooded him. The laughter they had shared by the stream, the kindness he had shown her mother, the way her eyes had once sparkled at the idea of dreams larger than the village, and then the cruel words she had spoken, the rejection he had swallowed with silence. The humiliation of hearing her laugh at his poverty, yet still, in that moment, he saw not only the woman she had become, but the girl who had once captured his heart entirely, and the pain he had buried deep inside rose like a storm breaking free. Though he kept his voice steady, his demeanor royal, for he was king now, and kings do not let the world see their weakness. And Amara, unaware of the magnitude of his restraint, felt the weight of his eyes upon her, recognizing in them the gentleness and fire she had once dismissed. And her chest constricted, her knees threatened to buckle, for she understood that the boy she had once cruelly turned away was the man who had endured exile, poverty, and trials beyond imagination, and yet his heart had not turned to stone, though it bore scars that would never fully heal. And the sight of him brought a torrent of regret she could not escape, tears threatening to spill but held back by pride and shame. And she felt the years of poor choices crashing upon her like a river in flood. Each moment with her husband, now a reminder of what she had lost. Each luxurious meal a hollow echo of the warmth she had abandoned. And even as Kofi spoke to the court, issuing commands with the calm authority of a just ruler, every word seemed to strike her heart, not because it was cruel, but because it reminded her of the silence of the years. The waiting, the unfulfilled promise, the love she had rejected. And at night, alone in her room, she wept until her pillow was soaked, imagining how life could have been. Imagining if she had only had courage to love. Imagining Kofi, poor or rich, waiting for her, and how she had never seen the depth of his devotion. And yet he never sought vengeance, never humiliated her publicly. For love had made him stronger and kindness had tempered his sorrow. And she understood then, with a bitter ache that would never leave her, that some opportunities in life are given only once. That rejection can be a wound that grows with years. And that a heart willing to love in poverty is the heart that endures even when life bestows power and wealth. And every tear she shed was a reminder that love, once rejected, leaves scars deeper than any blade. And that Kofi's patience and loyalty had taught her the cruelest but most beautiful lesson life could give. Amara's heart ached with a weight she could no longer bear. A weight that had grown heavier with each passing year. Every memory of Kofi stabbing her soul with the knowledge of what she had lost. And so one quiet night, when the palace was still and the moonlight streamed through the high windows like silver rain, she sought him out, the king who had once been poor, the boy who had loved her with nothing but his heart. And she found him alone in the grand hall, standing beneath banners and chandeliers, regal and calm. Yet there was a storm in his eyes that made her knees tremble and her breath catch in her throat. And she fell to her knees before him, tears flowing freely, soaking her hands in the hem of her gown. And her voice trembled as she whispered, "Kofi, I was afraid. Not of you, but of life, of struggle, of repeating my mother's suffering. I was weak. I chose comfort over love. I rejected you, the one man who loved me with nothing but all he had. And I have carried this regret in my bones every day since. Please forgive me. I am sorry." The silence between them stretched endlessly, the only sound her desperate sobs echoing against the cold marble floors. And Kofi looked at her, the depth of years and suffering reflected in his gaze. Jaw tight, hands clenched, holding back the tide of emotions that threatened to consume him. And then he spoke, voice low and steady, yet trembling with all the sorrow he had carried for years. "Amara, I loved you when I had nothing. I loved you when your words cut me deeper than any wound, when your laughter scorned me, when you turned your eyes from mine, when you chose fear over heart. I endured exile, hunger, loneliness, and poverty because my love for you was my strength, my reason to survive, my light in the darkness. And even now, after all these years, that love has not left me. It has stayed faithful, even when the world would have told me to hate, even when you were far from me, even when life tried to break me." And Amara's tears fell faster, her chest heaving. For the truth in his words struck her deeper than any pain she had ever known. And she reached toward him, but he did not take her hand. The distance between them filled with the memories of betrayal, of lost years, of the cruel choices she had made. And she realized with a pain that pierced every fiber of her being that some chances in life come only once. That love, once rejected, leaves wounds that wealth, time, or comfort cannot heal. And she wept not just for him, not just for herself, but for the girl she had been, for the choices she had made, for the life she could have lived, for the heart she had failed. And Kofi, standing tall, kingly, yet vulnerable, bore his pain quietly, letting her see the weight of all she had lost. And finally he said, "I forgive you, Amara. Not because what you did was small, but because love that is true survives even the deepest betrayal, even the cruelest rejection, even the longest absence. And you must carry this lesson with you for the rest of your life. Love is patient. Love is brave. Love endures when fear would destroy it. And if you choose again, choose the heart that never wavered. Choose the hands that held on even when you let go. For that is the love that shapes destinies and makes the world remember." And in that hall, under the pale glow of the moonlight, Amara's soul shattered and yet learned the hardest lesson life could teach. That love, once given and rejected, leaves scars. And that sometimes the purest hearts endure the longest pain. And as she wept, she whispered his name over and over, "Kofi. Kofi, I was wrong. I am sorry. I am so sorry." And the world seemed to pause, mourning with her, echoing her sobs through the silent palace, carrying the tale of love, regret, and redemption into the night, into the hearts of all who would one day hear it, and the lesson of courage, patience, and the price of fear would live forever in her sorrow, in his steadfast heart, and in the quiet memory of what had once been. The truth, when it came, struck Amara harder than any blade. Kofi, the boy she had rejected, the man who had endured her cruelty and vanished from her life, revealed a secret that left her trembling. He had been of royal blood all along, born into a kingdom under threat, hidden as a child to survive, tested by poverty and exile so that he could one day return stronger. And every hardship he had endured, every hunger he had suffered, every lonely night beneath the stars, had been endured with one thought in his heart: the love he had once held for her, the girl who had turned him away. Amara's chest tightened, the weight of her decisions pressing down on her like stones, and she realized with a horror that set her knees trembling that the boy she had scorned was never truly poor, that her fear and pride had blinded her to the depth of his heart, that the life she had sought through comfort and wealth was hollow, and she had thrown away the greatest treasure she could have ever known. She looked at him, standing tall, regal, calm, yet with eyes that held the memory of every wound she had caused, every tear he had swallowed, and she understood the full measure of what she had lost. The palace, with its grandeur, its jewels, its lavish halls, felt suffocating and meaningless now, for she had married comfort but had abandoned destiny. And every luxury became a reminder of the love she had rejected. That night, Amara wept like never before, the tears carving paths down her cheeks, wetting her hands, her dress, her soul. For she mourned not only the boy she had lost, but the life she might have had, the joy she might have known, the man who had loved her with everything he had, and who had waited silently through years of exile, through hunger, through loneliness, through a world that had sought to break him. Yet he had endured, steadfast, unyielding, unbroken. And her heart shattered again at the sight of his unwavering patience, and she whispered into the cold, empty air, "Kofi, I was blind. I was afraid. I am so sorry. I wish I could turn back time." And the moonlight caught his eyes, revealing the quiet sorrow, the love that had survived all her cruelty, all her fear, all the years, and she felt both joy and despair. For she loved him still, but the past could not be undone. The weight of fate, of destiny, pressed upon her, teaching her the cruelest lesson. Life is not measured by comfort, wealth, or fear, but by the courage to follow the heart, by the bravery to love despite uncertainty, And Kofi had shown her what true love meant, enduring every hardship, surviving every trial, waiting faithfully for a love that had once been denied. And as Amara knelt before him, silent, weeping, she understood that the choices we fear to make can echo for a lifetime. That love once rejected can carve scars so deep that even time cannot heal them. And that destiny, patient and unforgiving, tests the heart in ways the mind cannot understand. And in that moment, as she looked upon the king who had once been the boy she had laughed at, she felt a grief so profound it seemed to shake the very earth beneath her. And yet within that grief, a lesson shone bright, painful, and unforgettable. That love is the greatest treasure of all. That courage and faith are stronger than fear. And that sometimes the heart must endure the worst before it can truly see the depth of its own longing. And Kofi, standing above her, did not offer her reconciliation. For some things cannot be returned. But he allowed her to see the full measure of the love she had lost, to face the consequences of her fear, and to learn that patience, endurance, and unwavering devotion can shape destinies and teach lessons the world cannot. And as Amara wept into the night, she knew her life would never be the same. For the boy she had rejected had become the man she could never forget, and the story of their love, loss, and destiny would haunt her forever. Years passed, and Amara, broken yet wiser, carried the weight of her choices like a cloak she could not shed. And though she had wealth and comfort, her nights were filled with memories of Kofi, the boy she had once rejected. The man who had loved her beyond reason, and she realized that some lessons only come with pain. That some hearts must endure suffering to understand the true value of love. And she devoted herself to helping those who could not defend themselves, opening her home to orphans, poor children, and girls who, like her, were afraid of love because the world had taught them fear. And she whispered to them every day that the heart is stronger than gold, that courage is worth more than comfort, that kindness is the greatest wealth a person can carry. And each lesson she taught carried the weight of her regret, each story a warning of what fear can cost. And every child who laughed under her care was a reminder of what might have been if she had only chosen differently. And though she helped others, the ache in her chest never left, the memory of Kofi like a river that would not dry. And she would often stand at her window at night, staring at the stars, wondering if he ever thought of her, if he remembered the girl who had laughed at his poverty. And she knew the truth. He had never stopped loving her. His patience, his devotion, his loyalty, all enduring through time and distance. And she wept quietly, not in anger, not in bitterness, but in sorrow for what she had lost and for the lessons life had carved into her soul. And Kofi, ruling his kingdom with wisdom and justice, carried the same memory, unmarried, strong, powerful, yet haunted by the girl who had once been everything to him. And though they lived in the same world, breathing the same air, their lives forever separated by choices and fear, they shared a connection that transcended words, that existed silently, painfully, beautifully, in the spaces between them. And Amara learned that some loves are eternal, not because they are returned, but because they endure, because they shape lives, because they teach the heart the greatest lessons of all. And she realized that wealth could never replace love, that status could never undo fear, that comfort could never heal the scars left by the rejection of a true heart. And so she poured herself into others, teaching them not only with words but with action, showing them that true love is rare, that courage is essential, that patience and loyalty are more valuable than silver or gold. And in her tears, in her prayers, in her quiet nights of sorrow, she carried the boy who had loved her, the man she had lost, and the lesson that life, though cruel, could still give meaning to suffering if one learned from it. And villages far and wide whispered of the girl who had learned too late, yet turned her pain into wisdom, who taught children to love bravely, to live kindly, to value hearts over riches. And the story of Amara and Kofi became legend, a tale that made mothers weep, daughters tremble, and hearts ache with longing, a story that reminded the world that the greatest treasure is not power, not wealth, not status, but the courage to love, to endure, and to face the consequences of choices made in fear. And in every heart that heard the story, the lesson lived on. echoing the sorrow and the beauty of a love rejected, of a heart broken, of a destiny forever altered. And as Amara looked at the children she had saved, she whispered silently into the night, "Kofi, I will never forget. I am sorry. I have learned, and I will teach others so they do not make my mistakes." And somewhere in his palace far away, Kofi smiled quietly, remembering the girl who had once been everything, knowing that love, though delayed, endures, and that the heart, once true, can never be forgotten.